and welcome to the Growing Towards God podcast. Here on Growing Towards God, we talk about ways to grow spiritually and hear how God has been working in people's lives. My name is Virginia, and I'm so excited that you are here today. Thank you so much for listening. So now let's get to the good stuff. What's up, everyone? Welcome back. So hyped to be here for this week's episode. I know last week took a week off. Also, just been busy, so I did manage to post on Instagram, but yeah, not really sure about the schedule for the rest of this season, or at least this semester. I definitely want to do some shorter episodes and just do as much as I can. So yeah, if there's like a couple weeks off that I don't have an episode, it's just because I'm busy with school stuff. But I do love doing this, and so I am going to just try my best to continue doing what I can do and what I have capacity for. But yeah, so I am very excited to be here for this week's episode, especially because it's the first episode from the question submission form. And yeah, someone submitted a really good question. And so the question that I got asked was, how have you dealt with conflict? And so yeah, I just really wanted to answer that because I feel like I have dealt with a decent amount of conflict, like just with friends. And yeah, I can definitely speak to like my experience with that. And so I would really love to do that. And maybe like provide some wisdom in that area of like how to go about that. For those of you that maybe haven't experienced too much conflict or have, but like want to resolve that. Would love to tell you about my experience and just provide some advice that I've seen that like has really worked for me. Yeah. So yeah, I guess to jump right in. And I'm not exactly sure what kind of conflict this is referring to. I think like there's personal conflict, then there's like physical, and then like, there's like abuse and stuff. And so I'm not talking about abuse in this. I'm talking about like personal conflict in relationships of like, hey, you said this and it hurt me, or you did this and it hurt me, like in an emotional way. Not something that's like super, super serious. Even though it may feel like, I'm not saying that personal conflict does not feel serious, because it is. And it can be. But for the purposes of this episode, I'm really just referring to the personal conflict. Yeah, but I do think that whatever kind of conflict it is, whether that's family, friend, coworker, teacher, or someone else in like a position of authority over you, whatever it is, that there is a duty that you have to make peace with that person and address the issue. So in my experience, how I've addressed conflict is, first of all, like taking time to just process how I'm feeling about it, but also not processing and like just procrastinating it, putting it off, taking time with like myself and with God to just be like, okay, what emotion am I feeling right now? And like, why might I be feeling this way? And like, be really specific about like, what specific thing is it that this person has done that has caused me to have this feeling inside of me? And yeah, the more specific you are about this, the better it'll help you in having a conversation. And just like seeing there might be some deeper issues going on, with yourself. It might not be about this person. But yeah, be as specific as you can. And it'll really help you out a lot later. Because when you bring something up to someone, you want to say, hey, this made me feel this way. If you're just like, hey, I feel sad. Then they're like, why? What did I do? So yeah, that step one is very important. And then second, I would say, like, you have to approach the person and ask if you can talk to them. You really don't want to just like bomb someone with like a harder conversation. And so I've done like, hey, like, do you have a couple minutes like to just chat about something? Or like text like, hey, tonight, like, we should talk about a couple of things. I think the text can be more like ominous, and people can work up in their minds like, oh no, like what are we going to talk about? Is it so serious? And like it might be. So I think doing it in person is better if possible. And you don't have to say, hey, I want to talk to you about this incident. Like, I think you can, but you don't always have to, especially if you're, like, texting someone. But yeah, I've done just like, hey, like, do you have like a minute to chat real quick? And stuff like that. And that's worked well. People are usually like, oh yeah. Or it's like, oh no, I'm busy, but like, let's talk this time. And then once you set a time, it's like, okay, I have this much time to like prepare and like know what I'm going to say. But I would say when you get into that conversation, with someone, you have to like own your part in the matter. And so, like, maybe you said something too, or maybe you've been thinking bad about them since the incident, but whatever it is, you have to, like, own and ask for forgiveness for that too. But also, you have to tell them specifically what they did that hurt you while still assuming the best about them. So, an example you could use is be like, hey, like, I wasn't sure what you meant by that comment, but I want to let you know that it really didn't make me feel good, and it kind of hurt me when you said that. And then you just leave it at that because you're just expressing your feelings. You're not trying to provide excuses or anything. You're just saying, hey, like, this made me feel that way. And then hopefully, like, they respond positively to that and ask for forgiveness. But yeah, providing a, like, this action made me feel XYZ, or I felt XYZ when you did this, gives the person a tangible way to see how their actions have hurt you. And it also holds them accountable to their actions and lets them know that, like, what you say or what you do actually does have effect on people. And so another practical thing is, like, when you're saying these words, it's important to say them in a slow way and with a tone that is calm and, like, not accusatory. I found that people are way more receptive to hearing how they hurt someone when you approach it calmly and assuming the best about them and just genuinely expressing your feelings rather than assuming you know the reason why they did something, because you might think that you do, but you really probably don't. And so if you come into it accusatory, then people get really defensive, and that's not the goal of addressing conflict. The goal of it is to make peace with people and get something off your chest and provide an opportunity to restore a relationship and be in right relationship with someone again. And yeah, so maybe when you address this conflict, like, they don't apologize and they can't see where you're coming from, or they just try to excuse your hurt. And if that's the case, I'm so sorry. And that is really hard. And you tried to be at peace with them and, like, you did what you could. You know, maybe that response leads to another conversation about conflict, or, like, maybe it doesn't, and you just forgive them on your own and you distance yourself from them for a little bit, and try to restore that in the future. But I would say, like, really just pray about it and ask God to soften their heart and soften your heart also, to prevent against, like, being really bitter towards them. But yeah, that's something that you have to discern with God, like, on your own, and it looks different in every situation. But the goal of bringing up conflict with someone is to address an issue and then move forward together in that, right? And I think that makes people way more compassionate and, like, gracious with people too. So yeah, those are kind of like 4 steps I would say for, like, how to address conflict with someone. And in my experience, those have really worked well. And, you know, how someone responds to conflict shows them a lot, or shows you a lot about their character and their heart. So yeah, it's important and can really reveal a lot about a person. And other times with conflict, you may be on the other end of this, and where someone may be addressing something that you did that hurt them. And so if you're on this side, you have to see where they're coming from and hear them out. And it probably took them a lot of courage to come up to you and address the situation. So even if their reaction wasn't your intention, then it's still kind and respectful to hear them out fully and, like, listen to what they have to say and, like, understand where they're coming from. And then, like, apologize and ask for forgiveness. And, like, maybe explain, oh, like, that was just a a backhanded or that was just a random thought that I had. I'm so sorry that it made you feel that way. Definitely was not my intention. Like, would you please forgive me? And like, I've had to do that too. Like, that's just part of like growing up and being like a responsible adult and human that cares about other people, because we are all broken, and you're going to experience hurt and conflict, and you're also going to be the cause of hurt and conflict. No matter how hard you try, it's just our sinful nature. And so it's really important to be aware of that and like be cognizant of how other people may receive things that you say or do. But yeah, for me, like a lot of times I really build up approaching someone and talking to them about something that hurt me, as well as being the one to ask for forgiveness. Like, I could do a whole episode about asking for forgiveness. So like, comment if you want me to do an episode on that, or leave a question in the submission form or whatever. But yeah, it's really easy to build something up in my mind for me. I'm like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Like, it's whatever. I'm over it. But then like, I'm still thinking about it like weeks later. And it's like, okay, well, maybe I should address that issue. Like, you know, I would say there's never like a far enough time away to address an issue. Even if it's just like silly. I think if it's still on your mind and it's still bothering you, then you really should. 'Cause God wants us to live at peace with everyone. But yeah, especially if you're having conflict with someone that like is close to you, it can be really like nerve-wracking to bring something up that like you think might jeopardize the relationship or, you know, cause a rift in the friendship. But a lot of the times it's really not. It really doesn't happen. Especially if your friend is a true friend that actually cares about you. Like, I don't think anyone intentionally wants to hurt people. If so, like, don't be friends with that person. Like, pray for them. I will say, though, that in my experience, anytime I have brought up conflict with someone in this way, like, it went way better than I thought it would go. And a lot of times I feel I've experienced a lot of, like, internal conflict and internal battling, just being like, oh, should I bring something up? No, I really shouldn't. Like, but I feel God's urging me to, but then I'm like, no, I want to be comfortable. And then like, one time I did that, and I went like 2 months having that, and God was like, you really just need to talk to this person. And I was like, yeah, this has been weighing me down. I really should have done that when you brought it up first. Like, you're right, God. And so yeah, there's never a time that it's like too far to address something, especially if it's bothering you. But yeah, I think that internal battle is just a highlight of the battle between the spirit and the flesh, in your own heart. And it's also a spiritual battle, especially when this person is a Christian, because the enemy wants to divide the body of Christ and make us enemies, and sow hatred amongst us, but we're really not. And so if your perspective changes to like, this isn't just about me and this person, this is about me and like the enemy, right? Like, it's a spiritual battle, spiritual warfare. Then I think that is also another really good reason of why you need to address things, because we're all supposed to love each other and be at peace with one another. And you can't do that if you're fighting with someone, and harboring bitter and anger in your heart towards someone. So you've got to overrule your feelings of self-preservation and comfort in order to be at peace with that person. And so also just to encourage you in this, like, God does care about your conflict and your feelings in this, but he also cares about the other person and their heart and, yeah, their relationship and their standing with him. But yeah, the Bible does have a lot to say about conflict. But a couple of things that really resonate with me when dealing with conflict is that, like, we're commanded to live at peace with everyone. Romans 12:18 says, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. So, like, it's up to you to make that decision to fix that relationship and be in right relationship with someone. It's not up to you to control how someone responds to that, but it's up to you to make the effort to provide a way forward when you're feeling hurt and there's like a rift or something, right? And like maybe you need to take a couple days off, and like really process through it. And like that's okay too, but the important part is not to avoid it. And also 1 Peter 4 verse 8 says, "Above all, love each other deeply, because love covers over a multitude of sins." This is also saying that not every little thing has to be addressed with everyone that you have an issue with. I think that gets really old really fast. Like if things come up, if things come up and they do bother you, please address them and like make every effort to live at peace with them. But love covering a multitude of sins means like, oh, they didn't put the dishes away, or they put them away wrong, or they loaded the dishwasher wrong. I'm not going to address that with every single person because it's just trivial. And I think being a friend means you see someone's flaws, and you still love them. And as Christians, we're called to love each other, love our neighbors as ourselves. And so, yeah, there's just like so much more I could say about this too, but I do want to keep these episodes kind of shorter. But if you have more specific questions, fill out the question and episode topic submission form in the link in the description, and I would love to like circle back to this and also answer any other questions that you have. But I hope that this was really helpful. Just kind of provided some frameworks that have worked for me, and like I think the biggest part is just being open to hearing what someone has to say, and knowing that you're on both sides of this. We're hurt people that hurt people, and you can learn from each and every experience, whether that's someone addressing conflict with you or you bringing up conflict. And so, yeah, do your best to live at peace with people, and ask God for strength to have those conversations, because they can be hard, but He wants you to have them and He'll be with you in them. So yeah, don't ever forget that. Okay, bye guys, have a good week. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you took something meaningful away from this discussion and know that God loves you so much and desires a personal relationship with you. If you'd like to stay up to date with episodes, follow me on Instagram at Growing Towards God Pod and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. Before I go, I'd like you to take this benediction into your life and let the Lord's goodness empower you today. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make His face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord turn His face toward you and give you peace. Have a great rest of your day, and catch you next time on the Growing Towards God podcast.